It was the peak of summer. The sun shone high in the sky, blazing mercilessly over the land. The rivers had shrunk, ponds had dried, and the trees stood tired and weary, their leaves curling inwards to avoid the heat. The earth was dry and cracked, and even the breeze that sometimes passed through the village felt hot and restless. In this burning landscape flew a lone crow named Kaalu. Kaalu was not just any crow. He was smart, observant, and patient. He lived near a small forest on the edge of a village, along with a flock of crows. But that morning, as the sun rose earlier than usual and brought unbearable heat, Kalu found himself extremely thirsty. The well near their tree had dried up days ago. There was no dew on the leaves, and even the riverbed nearby had turned to sand. Kalu flapped his wings and looked around. "I need water," he said aloud. "Without it, I cannot survive this heat. I must find some soon." With hope in his heart and determination in his wings, he set out in search of water. The search begins. Kalu first flew towards the village. The villagers often left bowls of water for birds on their rooftops. But today, every rooftop looked abandoned. The children were inside, escaping the sun, and the bowls were empty or overturned. He flew to the temple, where once he had seen a priest pour water into a stone trough. But the trough was bone dry now, and a few ants scurried over its cracked edges. Still thirsty, but not ready to give up, Kalu decided to search further. He soared above the village, scanning every corner with sharp eyes. That's when he spotted an old woman's hut at the edge of the village, surrounded by clay pots and earthenware. Maybe there, he thought. He flew down and landed gently on the fence. His eyes fell on a narrow-necked clay pot standing near the doorstep. Curious, he hopped closer. When he looked inside, his heart skipped with joy. There was water at the bottom. But his joy faded quickly. The water was far too low. The neck of the pot was too narrow for him to fit his beak through. No matter how much he tilted his head or tried, he couldn't reach it. Problem and frustration, Kalu stepped back and thought, "I've found water, but I cannot drink it. What good is this?" He flew around, tried to push the pot, tilt it, even peck at it, but it was too heavy and stable. His beak was long, but not long enough. The water just sat there, quiet and unreachable. For a moment, he felt helpless. He looked up at the sky and around the dry fields. Everything was still. No other crow was in sight. There was no one to help. But Kalu wasn't a bird who gave up easily. He sat on a nearby branch and thought hard. What can I do? How can I get the water? To rise? Then something caught his eye. The clever idea near the hut, under a shady tree, lay a small pile of pebbles. Children had been playing there earlier, maybe making little castles or circles. Kalu stared at the pebbles and then at the pot. His eyes lit up. "Yes, that's it!" he cawed. He remembered something he had seen before. Long ago, he had watched some village children throw stones into a pond and noticed how the water splashed higher with every stone. "If I drop enough stones into the pot," he reasoned, "the water level will rise, and I will be able to drink." Excited and full of new energy, Kalu hopped to the pile of pebbles. He picked one with his beak, flew to the pot, and dropped it in. Plunk! The pebble fell to the bottom, and the water moved a little. He picked another one and dropped it in. Plink! Then another, and another. Soon he got into a rhythm. Pick, fly, drop. Over and over again. The sun was still harsh, his wings grew tired, and his beak felt sore, but he kept going. Slowly, the water began to rise. Struggles and determination. But it wasn't easy. Some stones were too big. Some slipped from his beak. Once, a cat nearby stirred, and Kaalu had to hide for a moment. Another time, a strong wind made him drop his pebble halfway. But Kalu didn't give up. He rested for a while and looked into the pot again. The water had come up a little more. That gave him strength. Just a few more stones, he whispered to himself. His wings ached, his legs trembled. But with sheer will, he kept at it. The pile of pebbles was getting smaller, and the water level was getting higher. At last, after what felt like an eternity, he saw it. The water was near the top. He leaned in, and for the first time that day, his beak touched the cool, life-giving water. He drank deeply, letting the freshness flow into his dry throat. His tired body relaxed, and his mind calmed. He drank until his thirst was gone. A message in the wind after drinking. Kaalu sat quietly on the edge of the pot, watching the sun slowly move west. A breeze passed by, cooler than before. The village children came outside again, laughing and playing, unaware of the little drama that had just unfolded beside their home. Kaalu looked around at the dry land, the empty pots, the tired trees, and then at the pebbles lying scattered near the pot. He felt proud, not because he had found water, but because he had used his mind to solve a problem. He hadn't waited for help. He hadn't flown away in frustration. He had stayed, thought, tried, failed, and tried again, until he succeeded. As he flew back home, he passed by other thirsty birds and shared his story. Soon, the other crows followed his trick. They started looking for pots, and wherever they found one with water too low, they used stones to raise it. The news spread like wildfire among the bird community. Even the sparrows and pigeons began copying the crow's method. The moral that lives on over time. The story of Kaalu, the thirsty but clever crow, reached not only birds, but also humans. One day, the old woman who lived in the hut noticed the pebbles inside her pot and the tiny claw prints on its edge. She smiled and said to her granddaughter, "Looks like a very smart crow visited us. There's always a way, child. You just have to think." The thirsty crow became a story passed from generation to generation, a tale not just about thirst, but about intelligence, effort, and never giving up. It taught children that sometimes brute force doesn't help, but clever thinking does. It showed that no problem is too big if you stay calm and use your mind. Kaalu, the humble crow, had no idea how famous he had become. For him, it was just about surviving the heat and solving a problem. But for the world, it became a powerful lesson in wisdom and perseverance.